Hanımlar beyler, Avrupa Parlamentosu içerisinden hazırlanıp yayınlanan tek Türkçe program Brüksel Kargası'na hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Bu haftaki bölümümüzde yine çok önemli ve değerli bir konuğumuz var. Sayın Miltiadis KYRKOS bizimle. Hoş geldiniz yayınımıza.
Günaydın Kenan Bey. I'm very happy to have you with us today.
Hemen hızlıca size şunu sormak istiyorum. Geçtiğimiz ay Ocak ayında Face of Turkey isimli bir etkinlik yaptınız. Oldukça ses getirdi. Bu etkinliğin çıkış noktası neydi? Neden böyle bir etkinlik yaptınız ve kimlerle birlikte yaptınız bu etkinliği? İstediğiniz etkiye ulaştı mı?
You know, I work the last 5 years as part of the Joint Parliamentary Committee with Turkey. So I work with Turkey. And I work with people, with organizations, with politicians. And I learned so many things that I was astonished that my colleagues here in the European Parliament, but also citizens in Europe, do not know that they exist. They have an idea that Turkey is far away, Turkey is a strange land. And what I discovered and learned was that in some issues I'm jealous of Turkey. I'm jealous of its civil society because I met people from vibrant organizations dedicated to supporting people who do not have, who they are in need. So I wanted to bring these faces of Turkey because Turkey, as every country, has many faces. I wanted to bring here in the parliament the faces that represent of what I think best in Turkey. Not political affiliations, no other issues, just people who are working to lift the burden of others who are less privileged.
Sizce Avrupalı vatandaşlar, Avrupalılar ya da Avrupa Parlamentosu'nda görev alan parlamenterler Türkiye hakkında tabii birçok görüş beyan ediyorlar, hatta kararlar alıyorlar. Türkiye'nin yüzlerini çok iyi bilmeden mi yapılıyor sizce bu? Yani evet, Türkiye'deki sivil toplum belki iyi çalışıyor ama sizin de en son eventinizde fark ettiğiniz gibi aslında Türkiye o kadar da iyi tanınan bir ülke değil Avrupa toplulukları arasında.
It's true. Although we are neighbors, we don't know Turkey. And Turkish citizens do not know Europeans. So it's a failure on both sides. Because, okay, accession processes, economic relations, diplomatic relations, joint projects are interesting and very important. What is more and more important is to understand how another country lives everyday life and to see the problems that we have here in Europe and the problems that Turkish citizens have in Turkey in many places are exactly the same. So what we saw from 11 NGOs that were part of the Faces of Turkey and 2 teachers was the very important work in domains of health, of education, of support of women, of HIV knowledge, of aspects of everyday life that we have the same problems and we have similar NGOs. But what is important in your question is maybe more important how we can proceed and make these 2 areas, Turkey and the EU, come next to each other. And I think one way was a very small step, but it is not just the event here in the Parliament. We had a good attendance and the website very strong, but the most important is that we already tried to run 3 projects out of it. Social Bend with skills, NGO for blind people, how blind people can understand art, and also TEGEV for education. So we're trying to move from this event, which was a networking for NGOs in the European area, but also, of course, as I told you, an exhibition, what is really Turkey, to move to the next phase. Next phase is more and more common projects, European project going to Turkey. So this is the way to move forward.
Bu etkinliğin nasıl yapıldığını merak edenler varsa faceofturkey.eu adresinden, şu anda ekranımızda da görülüyor. Bu adresten bu etkinlikle ilgili daha detaylı bilgiler alabilirler. Biz de ümit ediyoruz Türkiye'nin daha yakından tanınması için bu tarz etkinliklerin parlamentoda daha çok yer almasını ümit ediyoruz. Buradan ilerleme raporu ile ilgili bir soru sormak istiyorum. Şimdi Avrupa seçime gidiyor. Seçim öncesi bir Türkiye ilerleme raporu var ve konuşulan askıya almak kavramıyla karşı karşıyayız şu anda. Bu bir kelime oyunu mu sizce? Yani askıya almak hukuken mümkün mü? Çünkü hani müzakerelere başlamak için Bütün parlamenterlerin oy birliği gerekiyor. Askıya alınınca umarız böyle bir şey olmaz ama tekrar müzakerelere başlamak için nasıl bir süreç olacak?
As you know, we are in the European Parliament. And the role of the Parliament, in the eyes of many parliamentarians, is to express European values and to send messages of any situation that comes into discussion. So this proposal from the Parliament, which comes with the report for suspending negotiations, which in fact is terminating, because if we suspend, which is the formal legislative option, if we suspend, we need a two-thirds majority in the Council. But to start again, you need unanimity. So only one country can block the opening again of the negotiations. But as I told you, the Parliament is the heart of Europe. But this decision will be taken by the Council. My government, for example, Greece, will never vote for that because we truly support the negotiation project, because it is a tool for dialogue, a tool for discussion, for supporting Turkey to do the important steps to go towards the European acquis, the way we do things. Also, the German Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs yesterday told us that he's totally against the termination of the accession. Shouldn't discuss it because it is counterproductive, as he said. It's a tool of dialogue. So maybe during the electoral times
Sizin
that we
hisleriniz
have,
nerede peki şu anda? Yani konseyde bu oylama yapıldığında sizce dondurma kararı alınacak mı ya da askıya alma kararı? Yoksa Türkiye için hala umut var mı?
the report of the Parliament is one issue. We have seen many reports through the years. And to tell you the truth, reports don't solve situations. They express the stand of the Parliament, but they are not tools for solving problems. The tools are, in the real world, are the chapters in the accession negotiations, the reforms that Turkey has to do, the judicial reform, which is already late. It should come in December. It was promised in December, to see how this change in the presidential system is corresponding to the European way of the separation of powers. So these are the real tools. Parliament every year will make a report. It is interesting because it's a step towards a discussion we must have with Turkish authorities, political elite, and also the people. But the Council is taking this decision. And as I told you, we know, because we work for it, that many governments do not support the termination of the negotiations. But we must look clear to the future. After the coup, Turkey took steps backwards concerning the issues that are discussed in the open chapters. We should retrace the steps. So this tool must be used. We must not forget that each and every chapter is a roadmap, and we must work on these roadmaps, not say that Turkey tomorrow will be or will not be a member of the Union. We are neighbors. We as Greeks cannot imagine Turkey outside the European dimension, and Turkey needs Europe as much as we do.
Evet. Son bir soru sormak istiyorum programı bitirmeden. Bugün Avrupa Parlamentosu'nda İktisadi Kalkınma Vakfı ile birlikte bir iş yemeğiniz var, bir diyalog toplantısı var. Hem İktisadi Kalkınma Vakfı olarak hem de Türkiye'deki diğer sivil toplum kuruluşları olarak Avrupa Birliği süreciyle ilgilenen nasıl buluyorsunuz? Sizce güncelliğini koruyor mu Türkiye'deki sivil toplum kuruluşlarının Avrupa Birliği heyecanı? Hala heyecanlılar mı? Hala aynı motivasyonları var mı? Avrupa Parlamentosu'nda Türkiye'nin Avrupa'ya üye olması için hala büyük bir heyecanla çalışıyorlar mı? Siz nasıl hissediyorsunuz bir parlamenter olarak?
I'm sure that they're disappointed because when they receive the message that even part of the powers in Europe, the Parliament I mean, are discussing the termination of this process, which is very important for their own lives, they are afraid that they will be left alone. It is not the case. We work with civil society organizations. They look upon the European Union. We share the same values. They're not European values. They're common values that we share. It's the European way of doing things which is important to establish in Turkey. The values are the same. And we see from the NGOs that we brought here, but also from the hundreds of others that I have met in Turkey, they all look upon Europe. So it's unthinkable that Europe should say, I retreat, I cut the funds, I get my hand back, I leave the Turkish civil society alone. So it's an important work we have to do. But as we said, it's not enough for civil society to do its job or to dream about Europe. We should work together more and more. We should demand from governments here and there to support the joint projects, to support the joint way. This is very important. And with IKV, which is an extremely good partner because we share the same values, same ideas, we still will be working on the years to come to bring the European dream of Turkey alive.
Evet, Sayın Parlamenter Miltiadis KYRKOS çok önemli söyledi. Sadece hayal etmek yetmiyor. Daha çok çalışmamız lazım, daha çok çalışmamız lazım. Çok teşekkürler yayınımıza katıldığınız için. Bundan sonraki süreçte de AB-Türkiye ilişkileri açısından umutluyuz.
We just don't hope, we work for that.
Evet, umut etmiyoruz, çalışıyoruz. Çok güzel bitiriyoruz programı. Önümüzdeki hafta yeni konu ve konuklarla Brüksel Kargası tekrar sizlerle olacak. Lütfen YouTube kanalımıza abone olmayı unutmayın ve bizi takip edin. Bir sonraki yayında tekrar görüşmek üzere, hoşça kalın.